Good morning, church. It is good to be with you today. Thank you for being back with us. Apologies that we could not get the service online in time last week. So thank you for being back this week. We always do our best to make sure that we can meet in this space together, however it may be. And so, however this Sunday finds you, pray that you are well and that above all things you would find God's peace and blessing today. We'll begin with the reading from Psalm 30. I will exalt you, Lord, for you lifted me out of the depths and did not let my enemies gloat over me. Lord my God, I called to you for help, and you healed me. You, Lord, brought me up from the realm of the dead. You spared me from going down to the pit. Sing the praises of the Lord, you, his faithful people. Praise his holy name, for his anger lasts only a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. When I felt secure, I said, I will never be shaken. Lord, when you favored me, you made my royal mountain stand firm. But when you hid your face, I was dismayed. To you, Lord, I called. To the Lord I cried for mercy. What is gained if I am silenced, if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it proclaim your faithfulness? Hear, Lord, and be merciful to me. Lord, be my help. You turned my wailing into dancing. You removed my sackcloth and clothed me with joy, that my heart may sing your praises and not be silent. Lord, my God, I will praise you forever. Let's continue to worship together this morning. This morning, our passage mainly comes from Mark chapter 1, but we'll also be exploring a couple of chapters in Luke, chapters 4 and 5, if you want to mark your place there. Mark 1, towards the end of the chapter, we see something that Jesus does that I think might have an effect on us in our lives, that we would emulate, and that Jesus shows us in a very real sense how to live and stay connected to God. This passage that we'll read in a moment is one that I used in a sermon back in February, so if it sounds familiar, that is when it was from. I had to look it up myself to see when it was. But there was something about this passage that continued to speak to me in the midst of these days that we're in at the moment. And so we'll read this together. This is Mark chapter 1, 35 through 39. It says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Simon and his companions went to look for him, and when they found him, they exclaimed, everyone is looking for you. Jesus replied, let us go somewhere else, to the nearby villages, so I can preach there also. That is why I have come. So we traveled throughout Galilee, preaching in their synagogues and driving out demons. This story of Jesus going off very early in the morning while it was still dark to go to a solitary place to pray comes on the heels of Jesus having a very successful healing ministry the day before. Jesus had been all around the countryside there, and he had gone to the home of Simon's mother-in-law. She had a fever. He rebuked the fever. We'll see the story in Luke chapter 4 in a moment as well. And he sends the fever away, and it says, but so many people were there, they brought all their sick to him. People brought Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. The whole town gathered at the door. Remember, they were all there. And finally, after everyone has left, Jesus, probably exhausted, needing sleep, gets up early in the morning to go pray. To go pray. And Jesus does this. I think about how this might connect with us. Whenever someone asks me how I'm doing, I'll always reply pretty much the same way, good, but then I add something to it. Good, busy, staying busy. As if being busy is what it is to be good. Or maybe we say good, but busy, as if we weren't quite so busy, things would be better. But one way or the other, our busyness seems to dictate our lives. I know as I talk to many of you, it seems like the calendar only speeds up. There are no slow moments in life anymore, particularly on this side of the pandemic and lockdown. Things seem to be moving at an exceptionally fast pace. I remember how long the first couple of weeks of quarantining due to COVID seemed to take. And now it seems like life is even faster than it was before then. And so I wonder in this moment if these words would describe you. Are you tired? Are you too busy? Are you exhausted? Are you anxious and stressed? Are you just plain tired? Do any of these words describe you? I wonder if they do, we might look at this story of Jesus and see what he did when this happened. The line in the story that Peter tells Jesus is the one I think that's indicative for us today too. He says, when they found him, everyone is looking for you. Everyone is looking for you. Imagine the weight of that for Jesus. And we know it too. Everyone is looking for you. Maybe you're a mom and your kids need you all the time. Or at work, everyone is looking for you. You're the one who can do this thing. Everyone is looking for you. It seems nice to be the one to be in demand, the one to be able to do all these things, but the reality is it comes with stress and pressure. And Jesus would feel it too, and that's why he got up to go pray, to find this rhythm of reconnecting to God. And that's what Jesus does in this place, and I think that's what we should do as well. The Luke story tells it just the same as well in Luke chapter 4, very much like Mark's story. And Jesus heals a whole bunch of people. It says at daybreak he went out to a solitary place, but the people all came looking for him. They all found him. In Mark's story, Peter comes and says, everyone is looking for you. And Luke tells us that everyone was looking for him, and they found him. And so Jesus goes on to a new place. But this is curious, isn't it? That Jesus would withdraw in this moment of great success. In our world in 2021, we would look at this and maybe say, Jesus, now is not the time to pull back. Now is the time to lean into what you were doing. The night before, Jesus, so to speak, played to a sold-out show. The house was full, remember? Everyone came. They brought their sick and their demon-possessed, and Jesus healed them all and sent them off on their way. It was a great success. So much so that the next day, I can imagine when Peter said, everyone is looking for you and everyone goes to Jesus, there was demand for a second sold-out show. No telling how long this could have gone on. People would have continued to bring the sick and the demon-possessed and all kinds of others to Jesus. And this is the way faith healers worked in the first century. In the first century, if you had a reputation as a faith healer or this was your job, really these were mostly charlatans who preyed on the poor and the weak and the people who were desperately looking for something. But what would happen is they would set up shop and people would come to them. People would come to them. There would be gatekeepers like Peter or the other disciples. Typically, it was family members. And if you wanted to get in to see the faith healer, you had to pay something. You had to give something up in order to get healed. And Jesus is different in a couple of ways that we'll see in the story. Jesus doesn't require anything, only that they come and Jesus heals them. But secondly, Jesus doesn't set up camp and say, everyone come to me in this place and you can be healed. No, Jesus goes out and he takes this good news all throughout Galilee and the surrounding area, the story tells us. But there is a toll that this takes on Jesus. It is hard to do. Jesus expends a lot of energy, and it's here where we might begin to see that there's a very real sense of Jesus' humanity coming through. I think of Jesus as one who sees the sick and the hurting day after day. They bring them to him. The people who are languishing in pain. The people who love them, who bring them to Jesus. And Jesus sees this time after time and heals them. And in Mark chapter 5, we get to verse 12. Jesus heals a man with leprosy. He was in one of the towns that he had gone to, and a man came along who was covered with leprosy. It says, he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. Jesus reached out his hand, touched the man. He says, I'm willing to heal you, be clean. And Jesus told him not to tell anyone, but to go show himself to the priest and offer sacrifices, to be restored to where he could worship again. Yet the news spread about the man all the more. The crowds came to hear him and be healed of their sickness. And then in verse 16 it says, but Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Jesus knew that he had to connect with God. He found this rhythm of service and ministry, but reconnecting to God over and over and over again. He continued to pray. And if Jesus needed to stop and to pray, how much more do we need to stop and to pray? To find places, maybe in the dark, maybe early in the morning, but certainly drawing away from all those who are looking for us, who need something from us, to draw away and to say to God, we need something from you. Jesus does this. And we see rest and prayer dictated in other places in Jesus' life too. So let's not just think of this and say, well, I'm no faith healer. I don't need to do that. Maybe Jesus doesn't understand the demands of my life today. I don't need to do that. But Jesus, in his everyday going about the things that happen, Jesus would connect to rest and prayer. Think about on the most important, or one of the most important nights of Jesus' life, the night that he would be arrested. He doesn't get all his affairs in order. He doesn't remember. Part of me wants to think that he, instead of grabbing the disciples to go pray in the Garden of Gethsemane, he should have set them down and given them better instructions about what they were to do. Maybe told them about the Trinity or something else, about how the end times would come about in a more clear and succinct way. But no, that's not what Jesus does. Jesus goes to the garden. It's dark. Everything is pressing in on him, and he goes and he prays. Wow. I think about when Jesus is traveling through Samaria with the other disciples, and he stops at Jacob's well. You remember the story of the Samaritan woman. He asked her to get him a drink. Jesus stopped and rested. If you remember in the story, the other disciples went into town to go get something to eat. And they'll bring something back to Jesus, but Jesus stops and rests. And as he does so, he has this remarkable conversation with the Samaritan woman. But Jesus recognized that he was tired and he rested. He didn't try to overdo it. He'd gone the same distance as everyone else. They were probably all tired, but they went into town and Jesus rested. And it was in that moment of rest that he found this woman, that this woman found him, and this remarkable thing happens. I wonder what remarkable thing might happen if we would stop and we would rest. I wonder. Imagine for a moment in your own life if you could have a moment of quiet. That's difficult to imagine in my life with our young children, but it's important to find the moment. It's important to find the moment even if they find you. I think about what it looks like when our kids see us praying, spending time with God, making it a regular pattern and rhythm of our life. And that's what I would say that we need to get into here, church, is to think about these stories and to think about Jesus often retreating into prayer. How do we make this a rhythm into our life? I think about the rhythm of connecting with God, and in rhythm, we begin to hear God's voice more clearly and differently. After all, the sheep know the voice of their shepherd. If we're having trouble recognizing the voice of God, maybe we need to get back into rhythm and spend time connecting with God. Find the places and the things that draw us close to the Father. This rhythm, connecting with God in this regular way, helps us to flourish, helps us to be a better part of God's kingdom, helps us to accept this invitation to participate with God in this amazing work that God is doing in the world. There's a story that Howard Thurman, the great preacher, tells of when he was a boy. There was an oak tree that he would lean against. And this tree, every now and then in the central Florida coast, when the winds would come, some of the branches would often break off, but the tree always held up. It was steady and strong. And he would often sit in its shade, his back leaning against the trunk of the tree, and he said it was in that moment that he could feel the calmness of the tree and the presence of God in that place. The strength of that oak reminded him of the strength of God and gave him peace. And I wonder, where would that place be for you? It may not be as dramatic as that. It may be hard to find an oak tree where you live or to get out to it, but there is a place that you might find connection with God. And my encouragement to you is to find that place to connect with God and to imagine how your life might be different when making a connection with God in the regular rhythm and pattern of your day, what that could do for you and the kingdom of God and all the people that you might encounter. I pray that you would find rest and peace. Sometimes it comes to us when we don't expect it, but I think we should follow the example of Jesus and to find rest ourselves, to withdraw and to pray, because connecting with God in this way is vitally important. And so, church, I pray that you would find rest and peace and grace in the very presence of God, just as Jesus did. Amen.